right, welcome everyone to Plug and Pay, a talk show where we invite payroll professionals from all around the world to talk with us about thought-provoking, interesting topics that are shaping the global payroll space. My name is Mark Oliver Fiedler. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Payzaar, and I'm the host of this show. We release new episodes of Plug and Pay every 2 weeks, and you can find them on our YouTube channel, on our LinkedIn page, or on any of the major podcast sites such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and so on. Now for today's episode, I'm very excited to have Jaco van der Merwe with us today. Jaco, thank you so much for taking the time. Jaco is in the payroll industry, also known as the Payroll Pundit. And Jaco, maybe that's where we start. Tell us a bit about your background. Tell us how you came to be known as the Payroll Pundit and what you're up to today.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I've been in the payroll space for a number of years, and I think I found my passion when I found payroll, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have still been operating in this environment. And really what it's all about is I'm always learning. I'm always trying to figure out new ways of doing things, and also borrowing from other schools of thought and other industries and other functions of the business, how they do their work, and trying to make it payroll. So consequently, I have a lot of opinions about how we can do payroll better, or what payroll can be, what it should be. And because of that, I've been dubbed a pundit, because I always have an opinion and I'm not shy to share that opinion. So I've become known as the Payroll Pundit, and I think it actually is a narrative that suits me quite well. So, when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. That's really what I've done.
I love it. And I think we can use more pundits in the payroll space in the sense of, helping us to think about how to advance the industry, how to evangelize people that are maybe not as familiar with what payroll is all about. So it's great to have that that sort of profile and mindset. Now talking about that, you being a payroll pundit, you do, as you said, you're quite vocal about your views, your opinions, and I've read some of the things that you've published on social media, and one of the things that you talk about is the business model canvas, right, and payroll strategy being defined and shaped through what's called the business model canvas. And I'm not sure if everyone listening here is familiar with what that business model canvas framework actually means and how it works. But I thought it was very interesting. And as you said just now, you're kind of trying to apply learnings and insights from outside of the payroll industry to the payroll industry. So I thought maybe it would be quite interesting for us to understand what is the business model canvas all about, and how are you using it to apply that to the payroll space?
Okay, great. Well, I'm really sort of passionate about this topic because I think it's such a wonderful tool. I came across this tool a couple of years ago in a business strategy environment. The tool is traditionally used to sort of devise business models about how a business will operate, how a business will make money. I mean, we're all in it for the money, right? Even non-profit organizations can leverage the business model canvas. It was developed by Alexander Osterwalder and 470 co-creators a couple of years ago. And it's really just sort of aimed at value creation, thinking about value creation. And it breaks down business strategy for me in a very sort of simple, easy to use way. And it really creates an environment where we can talk about business strategy in a fun and engaging way. The way the model is developed helps to bring focus to certain aspects of the value creation process, which obviously starts with customers. These are the people that we are doing business for. These are the people that we try to satisfy their needs and wants, and then what exactly the value proposition is, how we aim to satisfy our customers, what their needs are, how we will deliver to those needs, and then looking at the resources and activities and partners that we will require in order to create and deliver our value proposition. And then underpinning all of that is financials. How are we going to make a profit? How are we going to cost our product? So the business model canvas sort of brings a perspective about business strategy in general that I think is quite fun. It's a lot better than, lengthy strategy documents that business schools taught us to write a couple of years ago. This is a plan on a page. It's easy to understand. It's easy to capture key points about what is important to your particular business. And what I've seen is that this model is so transferable that we can use it for payroll strategy development. We can apply the principles of the business model canvas in payroll space. And that helps us as payroll professionals to not only strategize, which is something that traditionally in the past we haven't really been involved in. Either CFOs or CHROs were tasked with that responsibility. Now we see that that's sort of changing, and this is a tool for us to have meaningful conversations about that topic. And at the same time, it focuses the payroll operations in key parts of the process. So really brings a customer centricity or customer focus. At the same time, forces us to sit down and have conversations about what is the payroll value proposition, what should it look like, what could it look like, and then similarly to have conversations about what resources would we need to be effective and to add value to our business. What sort of partners would we need? Who are the ideal partners for us to leverage in our goal to deliver our value proposition to our customer segments? And then lastly, obviously, something that nobody can get away from are the costs. Even if a payroll department is not required to deliver a profit, in some cases they are, but even if that's not the case, we do have the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation about, are we doing things effectively and efficiently? In other words, are we really leveraging the budget that we have to achieve the most value? And at the same time, if the payroll department is not required to deliver a profit, let's then focus our conversation about cost containment. How can we reduce the costs or at least improve our level of output at the same cost? And the model really sort of brings those elements to a conversation about payroll and how payroll can add value to the business.
I like that. It sounds like a very comprehensive, well-rounded sort of framework that allows you to look at the role of the payroll function from all sorts of different angles. I'm curious, you mentioned that you learned about this a few years ago through, I think you said, a training or something of that sort. Are there any resources, links that where people, if they want to get deeper into this and learn more about the concept of a business model canvas, any recommendations where people should go?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say that Google is a verb these days, so feel free to slot it into your closest Google search engine, whether that's on your phone or on your PC. There's a dedicated Wikipedia page about this model, a lot of information there. And then, of course, you can go to the creator's website. It is registered under common license, so you are free to download materials from their website. They've really made this model available to us to use. So lots of information and useful guides as well on the website.
Okay, perfect. So I want to tie this, what you just spoke about, into one of the quotes that came across in one of the articles that you've written. And the quote says, applying this model to the payroll department brings forward thinking and future proving to an important function of the business that has historically been treated as mere administration. So I'm curious if you can expand on that aspect of forward thinking and future proving of the payroll function a bit more through this approach that you just described?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, using the model allows us to break down the payroll process into smaller pieces, and that allows us to have focused conversations about the different aspects of the payroll process in detail. So really making sure that each aspect is set up for success, and that the aspect from start to finish marry up together, and that it forms a cohesive whole. So really the scenario that we're trying to avoid is the garbage in, garbage out kind of thing that we hear so often in the payroll space. By sitting and talking about what exactly it is that we need to deliver to our different constituents and how we will do that, we change the narrative to a more proactive sort of conversation instead of reactive. So payroll can add value, first of all, by not behaving as an administrative function. I think for as long as what payroll behaves as an administrative, unimportant function, they will be treated. We will be treated as an administrative function. And this really allows us to sit and have conversations about value that the payroll department can bring. And once we, as the payroll industry or the payroll department, have figured out what it is that we want to produce and what the value is that we want to deliver to the business, we can have meaningful conversations with these business leaders to show them that actually we're about more than just getting people paid. We can do more. We have tools that allows us to do more, and we have data points that tells a different story. Data points that business leaders perhaps have not seen yet.
Mm-hmm. So just then picking up on that point of, helping the payroll function to be perceived and transform itself more into a value generator rather than just kind of traditionally being viewed more as a cost center, right? Kind of a back office, dare I say necessary evil. We need to run payroll. So transforming that, I think, is a very important and very noble objective, right? And I know a lot of payroll people I talk to are trying to work out how can we get there, right? How can we not be perceived as this, overhead function? How do you see that, given the framework and the fact that, as you said, in most organizations, payroll will be a cost, and it's not necessarily generating revenue. So how can payroll become that value generating function within the organization?
Well, this is one particular aspect of the model that I appreciate quite a lot. The fact that it brings a sort of specific view about customers and customer centricity. We need to, as payrollers, ask ourselves, who are we creating value for? What does your job actually do? What value does your job deliver? And then we can have meaningful conversations about what that would look like for the business. One thing that we must all agree on in any way is that cost containment will always be a topic of discussion for all of us. We operate in an environment with limited resources. Even the richest people in the world don't have enough resources to do the things that they want. Otherwise, I think by now, Elon Musk would have bought all of the social media platforms available. Not even he has enough money to do that. So he needs a plan, he needs a strategy about how to achieve the things that he wants to achieve. And the same applies to us, obviously not at that scale. But cost containment is always going to be something that we will need to talk about. I think once we sort of get to the point where we acknowledge that cost containment and cost in general is something that we are all subjected to, that sort of eliminates that as a barrier in the conversation. We're all subjected to the same constraints. That then means, how can the next team or the next department, the next industry that's working under the same constraints do things better than what we are doing? What are they doing better? What can we learn from them? And that is then really where the value conversation comes in. That is then where we see by operating within this environment where resources are limited, some organizations achieve a lot more than other organizations. Some payroll departments achieve a lot more than other payroll departments. Why is that? Why is there a difference in the output? What are they doing right? What are we doing wrong? Or, what should we change about our approach? What can we learn? And when we sort of have the function as payroll in a value-adding view, the function has evolved a great deal. We've seen that, especially the last couple of years, and that's due to a variety of factors. But one thing that's particular for our industry is technology. We've seen technology advance, and we've seen that technology enables us to do more things. Some people are resistant to sort of work with technology, and that could be a reason why one set of people, one payroll department delivers less value than another. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but that is generally one of the sort of easiest fixes. Technology allows us, for example, to do more things by simply automating administrative tasks. We have more time to do more important things. In other words, we have more time to spend with our customers or to have conversations with each other about what is the payroll value proposition and what should it look like. And that really just comes from leveraging information technology that is available today at our fingertips, that helps us to do things better and that saves us time.
Yeah. So one thing that I heard you talk about in the context of the business model canvas is there's the value generation aspect, and the other, it sounds like one of the other key paradigms is the customer centricity, right? Really understanding who your customer or customers are, and how you can best support them, serve them, help to create a better, richer, valuable experience for them. So now in a payroll context, payroll obviously is not a externally facing function, right? It's an internal function. But of course, payroll also has customers. But I'm curious, in your understanding, who do you consider the key customers for payroll to be? Who are we as a payroll function trying to serve?
There's so many, actually. And what I've also seen is this looks different across businesses and across industries. But I think in general, we can hone it down to a few important constituents. Obviously, employees are key. If there weren't employees to pay, there wouldn't be payroll departments. So that's key. At the same time, managers of those employees need information from us. They need to be able to communicate with us and pass information to us. So managers, I think, is a customer group in itself. Then when we move even a bit larger, take it further, a step back and take a bigger view at the organization, cross-departmental relationships, like the relationship between HR and payroll, the relationship between finance and payroll. We give a specific set of value add to HR, but the value add that we give to finance is completely different. And then, of course, I think a particular tier within the organization is the senior leadership team. These people are required to make long-term strategic decisions about the business and what's best for the business, and they need data to make those decisions on. And we have a lot of data, which means if we can learn the art of visual storytelling, we'll really be able to deliver a specific value proposition to that set of constituents in the business. And then also, obviously, governments. I mean, just because there are laws that govern the relationship between payroll and the government itself doesn't mean that a customer-centric approach would not apply in that case. The government is still a constituent that we need to take very good care of, because we know that when we don't, there's fines and penalties and interest and reputational damage and all of those kind of things. So there's a wide variety of customers within the payroll profession. I think to make it, for example, practical is one thing that I've seen that's a hot topic these days, probably because of the great resignation, I'm not sure, but employee experience is key. Many organizations have set out to enhance the employee experience, and payroll has really sort of contributed to that discussion. At the end of the day, the technology that the payroll team utilizes would allow employee and manager self-service, which is a key thing in the employee experience discussion. At the same time, after the pandemic, we see that remote work and work from anywhere sort of policies are key business drivers and that attract talent. That doesn't just sort of happen automatically. You don't just pick up your laptop, jump on a plane and work from another country. There's a slew of administrative activities that happens in the back end for those kind of things to remain compliant and to be effected and executed in a way that really does add value to the employee. And payroll has brought those value points to the conversation, and payroll has shown that we have what it takes to deliver on those fronts, which overall, together with all of the other benefits described by the employee value proposition, is what ultimately delivers the top-notch moments that matter.
It's very interesting because I think in a lot of cases when people talk about the employee experience, they think about the benefits and all the fringe benefits that have been built around the job that someone's taking on, travel policies and those kind of things. But I think as you describe payroll, how you support employees around their payroll experience, ranging from, as you just mentioned, remote work to how they receive their pay information, how they can access that. Those are all very important aspects of what makes up the overall experience for an employee and their relationship with their employer. So nothing is more frequent than one of the most regular and frequent interactions with your employer is your monthly or bi-weekly payroll execution. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the reason people get up in the morning. I know very few people that work for free.
Yeah, work for free or just for, hopefully there's some fun and fulfillment involved as well, but for most of us the paycheck is an important part of that overall commitment that we're making to our work life. So with everything that we've discussed, I think it's very, I'm getting very excited about the different dimensions that you mentioned. Just talking through, for example, the various different stakeholders that are really the customers of the payroll department. I think it's often easy to forget about how just multifaceted the payroll function really is. Probably if you just think about it, at a surface, someone might say, well, payroll, yeah, the end customer is the employee, but as you just described, there's so many more aspects and dimensions to it. And then sort of the more future thinking, dimension of payroll, and the value generation aspects of payroll that we should aspire to play. If we take that all together, if you had kind of the famous magic wand, there's no constraints in terms of budgets. Suddenly Elon Musk decided I'm gonna give Jaco all the money that he needs in order to build the best world-class payroll organization, payroll experience. Tell me a little bit what you would envision that to look like under this, business model canvas framework.
Okay, well, this I think is a very long answer, so I'm going to try and keep it short for you.
I know it's a big question. Yeah, I realize that.
Yeah, but for me, two perspectives, right? The first one is as a payroller, as someone working in the industry. And the second one is as an employee. right? I'm still an employee that receives a paycheck.
Sure.
I think employees should be able to interact with the people that are processing their pay. That's something for me that I'm very, very keen on. And I know that there's a lot of differing opinions about this. For example, some people say that when you take your car to the shop to be repaired, you don't speak with the mechanic directly. You speak to the consultant behind the desk.
Right.
And equally, in a payroll situation, many organizations have processes where queries around pay and pay slips aren't sent directly to the payroll department, they're sent to HR business partners instead. For me, I don't think that that is the best way to achieve that. It, for me, creates an unnecessary tripartite relationship. I don't see the value in it because it is an ineffective way of communicating. I would want the payroll to be as close to their customers as possible so that you can hear compliments and complaints firsthand. There's a value in that. I think the response, why this came about, was in response to sort of bringing a customer-centric approach to a technical function. Technical people perhaps don't have the customer centricity or whatever is required to maintain customer relationships. But I think from a payroll perspective, we have the skills that we need to maintain customer relationships, and we are able to speak directly with our constituents. And at the very least, Google transmission chain experiments, and then you'll see why I'm so passionate about payroll being very close to their customers. I would also obviously like to see an environment where we have the latest and greatest technology implemented. So this is all the developments from robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, chatbots, and plugins to data lakes, and of course, all of the security protocols that we need to make our data secure. That isn't just from an employee sort of perspective. As an employee, I would expect my employer to value my personal information as much as I do and to do what it takes to keep it private. But from a payroll perspective as well, you know, we share information. That is one of the key things that payroll does. In many instances, we act as translators. We take the narrative that we receive from the reward department or from HR, and we convert that into numbers, the language that the finance department speaks. So we share information about the people that we serve, and we need to do that in a secure way. We need to always think about who has access to the information and why. I think talking about data, also one thing that I would be very, very excited to see in an environment like that is all of the support and training that we need to become visual storytellers based on the payroll data that we have. I think in the industry in general, that is something that's lacking. It is something that I'm trying to do something about, but I also think we are going to see very interesting developments in that space. I really think that the data sort of world that we live in isn't going to be able to ignore payroll data much longer. Payroll will be expected to come to the table and to really show what we can do with the data that we have. And we have an opportunity to do that proactively. We can develop that sort of value add ourselves now by having these conversations like the one you and I are having, or we can sit back and we can be reactive, but that means other industries and other business leaders will make those decisions for us. They will define what the payroll value proposition would be in this space. So the more proactive we can be, the better. And I think lastly, I will spare no expense to ensure that we foster a culture of learning and information sharing. I think that is so important, that we learn from each other. And really, that is how we exponentially grow the body of knowledge about payroll best practices, is by talking to each other. And that is to show not just what went well, but also what could have gone better or what didn't go so well. We need to share those pieces of information with each other so that collectively we can evolve the payroll function. And that's obviously why these sort of sessions that you host are so important, because it's such a value add in the space for the industry, where we can learn from each other, and also, to get an opportunity to see what payroll could be by listening to what other people are keeping themselves busy with.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because I'm a firm believer that there's lots of, well, we all work kind of in our specific corporate environments, specific countries, with specific tools. There's so many things that we can learn from each other, and that's the fundamental idea behind having a talk show like Plug and Pay here, to expose people to interesting, thought-provoking ideas, like many of the ideas you just shared today. I found this fascinating to apply this framework of the business model canvas, which is not unfamiliar. I went to business school, and so you come across these kind of frameworks, but the concept of applying that framework to a payroll context is it's not necessarily intuitive, right? But I think the way you've described it, how it can be applied, and how many of the fundamental mechanics and ideas behind it work extremely well, when you really think through it for a payroll function as well, I think is a fantastic insight. And hopefully a lot of people watching this will pick up on that and apply to their own thinking about their role and their how they want to transform their payroll function in their organization. So
yeah, so with that being said, I can use this opportunity to proactively answer the question I always get first when I talk about this model and applying it to a payroll space. Everyone always asks, but how can the payroll department deliver value to their customers? What can the payroll department do? And it's actually really, really simple. It might be all of the years that I spent working in the market research industry, I don't know, but the answer is very simple. Just ask them. Ask your customers what they want. You don't need to sit in a secluded room and try and assume. You can ask them. Ask your CFO what kind of information would help you make better decisions. Ask your CHRO what kind of information do you need about our workforce so that you can make better decisions. How can I present that to you? Ask HR. Ask your employees. Quite often, surveys about employee wellness and how well employees feel at a company don't even include these kind of things. I have very rarely seen employee engagement surveys, for example, ask, would you like to be paid monthly or semi-monthly? Would you want to be paid in cryptocurrency? Would you want to be paid whenever you want? So just ask the people that you are creating value for, what is it that they need? And that will inform what you do next in terms of developing the payroll value proposition for your environment.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. I think get out there, mingle, put the feelers out. Absolutely. Well, listen, wrapping up, what we always like to do when we have the show at the end is do something that we call the lightning round. Very straightforward. I ask you a set of questions and you answer with whatever comes to mind first. It's not a quiz, just a little bit of fun to learn more about you and your perspective on things. So here we go.
Okay. First thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Right, here we go. Shoot.
Yes. So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh gosh, so many things actually. I didn't know up until I found payroll, because just before I started in the payroll environment, I was still studying a bit of accounting, a bit of law, a bit of economics, a bit of IT. I was all over the place. And then I found payroll and I finally knew that I was home.
You're a Renaissance man who found his calling.
Yeah, there we go.
Very nice. Talking about finding your calling, what are the essential qualifications or skills for a great payroll professional?
Working with numbers, numerical skills, absolutely. I mean, that's what we do for a living. And that's sort of granted, that's an inherent job requirement. I think further than that, the more soft skills you have, the better you are at having difficult conversations and those kind of things, the better you'll do.
Okay, Very good. What's the biggest factor that's holding payroll back?
I think it's payroll itself. I think we are scared. I think we are not yet ready to dive into the abyss. There are, leaders on the frontier that's making remarkable headway, but I think in the back, there's a few people still hesitant to get on board. And if we can collectively unite and, really sort of talk about what payroll is, then we'll be able to push it forward.
Great point. What gives you most satisfaction about your job?
The fact that I work with people's money. I think that is such an important part of the employee-employer relationship. Often as payrollers, we see spreadsheets with lots of numbers on, and I like to remind myself that that is not just a number, that's someone's livelihood. That is someone's ability to pay for food and medical expenses and school fees and all of those kind of things. I really like having that sort of connection with people.
Great. Last question. What do you do when your mind is overloaded with payroll?
Oh gosh, can that ever happen? Is there ever such a thing as enough, more than enough? No, well, I like to study. So when I feel that I've been payrolled out, I will actually peek into other departments or look into other schools of thought. There's a lot that payroll can learn from finance. There's a lot that payroll can learn from HR. There's even things that payroll can learn from other faculties like law and all of those kind of things. So I like to peek into all those different sort of faculties and see what I can use, what can I make payroll. And the conversation that we've had today is exactly one of those things.
You truly are the payroll pundit. It all comes back and connects back to payroll. I love that. And by the way, I think I'm going to have to I'm going to have to start using the term "I'm all payrolled out." I haven't heard that before, but I'm sure a lot of people can absolutely relate to that statement. All right. Well, listen. To wrap things up, Jaco, any shout outs? Anything you want to leave people with before we go?
Yeah, sure. This is something that I always proclaim on any platform that I get. So they'll probably, listeners might be sick of hearing it, but what I'll say is there's ample opportunity for us to learn and to educate ourselves. YouTube is an amazing resource. If you've never done a VLOOKUP before, YouTube can teach you how to do that. If you've never done Power queries or any of those fancy things, YouTube can teach you how to do that. It's so important that we share information, but it's equally important that we leverage that information when the time comes. So when you are stuck with an issue, when you do have a problem that you can't figure out, reach out. I'll help you find the correct YouTube video that will solve your problem.
I love it. And that's, I think, a great transition to kind of wrap up this episode. First of all, Jaco, thank you so much for everything you've shared with me and with the audience today. I thought it was very, very interesting, very insightful. I personally learned a lot, as I do in all of these episodes, but really enjoyed that. And I think your last comment about go out there, learn, find out, YouTube, Google, there's lots of great channels. And obviously that, leaves me to say that this episode will be posted on YouTube, will be posted on the podcast channels, Google and Apple Podcasts. And check out our other episodes as well. If you like this one, there's a lot more that you can learn from. If you like the content, follow us, subscribe to it. And also, please, if you do like it, leave a little push the like button. That always helps to create awareness and make other people appreciate our content as well. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Jaco, for being with us today, and until next time.